Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday morning, so it's time for Saturday morning walk and talk with HealthPointe. How's everybody doing this morning? Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. All right. Well, hey, we're going to get going right away here, but just as in the way of a brief introduction for anyone that this is their first time, this is our HealthPointe focus Saturday morning, what we call our walk and talk. Interesting thing about something called a walk and talk, you'll see some people are walking and some people are talking, but you don't have to. You can join into this community Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern time, and don't feel like you have to be walking, don't feel like you have to go on microphone or on camera. You can just be a fly on the wall observing. And then usually sometime later in Saturday, I'll get the episode uploaded to our YouTube channel called Voices of HealthPointe, so you can always watch it later. With that, our basic format is we go around the horn, nothing scripted. We just kind of go around the horn for anyone that would like to kind of comment. And with that, I'd like to lead off with Bruce and Eileen, I believe in Florida. I don't know where you guys are ever at. Sometimes you're on a ship coming in from a cruise, or so. Where are you at this morning? And good morning.
Good morning, Eric. So this morning we're our home. We're in Venice.
We have a house full of people, so we are going to have to get off pretty soon.
All right.
So we're doing our normal routine walk, and yeah, beautiful day. I just wanted to say I went into the 150s recently.
Woo-hoo! Yeah, and help us out with this. Where did you start at, Bruce?
Started at 203 in September.
Wow.
And down to 158.8 this morning.
Nice. Nice.
So that's my contribution for this morning. Not much,
hey,
but it's something.
We don't need much more than that, Bruce. You're an example. That's what both of you are, is an example. So down into the 150s, you know, we talk about that term sometimes, or at least I do with folks that I'm working with, where I say getting into your next deca. So you went from your 190s deca, your 180s, your 170s, your 160s, and now you're down in the 150s deca. That is awesome.
Yeah, it feels good. I got a few more to go, and then maintenance, I guess.
I'm trying to get him to wait for me, but I don't know.
I don't know. You're like a rocket ship there too, Eileen. I know you sometimes will say, oh, I didn't do this or something. You know, this is on the walk and talks. And then we hear later, you're like, it's like 0.2 difference or something. We're like, what? You know, you kind of built it up as like this big quote unquote failure. And it was just like a 0.2 increment or something. But you're down. What's your numbers, Eileen?
It's right around 60. So we did the cruise, and we were on. I'm sorry for all the noise. Maybe we should go in the community. Being on the cruise, we were on the Eat More Food week 6, so we were eating way more than normal, and I gain a little bit when I do that, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not worried about it. We're going to start the next cycle on Monday, and then I'll get back to. I was in the 140s, now I'm like 150. But that's okay. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to get this next cycle. I'm looking forward to see what happens. And what I wanted to share with people is, if you're on this program and you have clothes in your garage or in a closet, try them on. I missed so many clothes. They are too big, and they were my smaller clothes. So I would say get them out, keep trying them on, because otherwise you're going to have to give them away. That's how good this program is.
That is so great. And yeah. You've also had some, well, both of you have had some health numbers and checkups that have been really positive recently compared to the past 2 as well. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, we both have had been able to get off medication. One thing I didn't share, which I forgot about, is I was taking omeprazole to begin with, which is for heartburn. And what? Oh, hi. And I was able to get off that right away, like within a month or 2. because I wasn't eating junk anymore. So, and then of course I've mentioned it before, but was able to cut my statin drug in half, and able to not be taking high blood pressure medication, which my doctor wanted me to do, because now it's good. And Bruce was able to cut what?
Omeprazole in half.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
So,
I
so
wanted
both
to,
of you on the heartburn, both of you then on the heartburn medication reduction.
I honestly was such a mess and didn't realize it. You can't eat sugar all the time and be healthy. You just can't do it. Well, I couldn't do it, put it that way.
Well, it's you know, it's so interesting, Eileen. So sugar just seems like this thing that's always been around and just, I don't know, it's just so normalized. But I was listening to somebody the other week, I will just say, and they just said, realize that sugar is not a food group. I mean, we talk about these things that are like essential, you know, nutrients, vitamins and minerals. We talk about our macronutrients. We talk about essential stuff. And you think about sugar, somehow, I don't know if anybody actually thought about it. I guess they wouldn't say it's a food group, but sometimes you would think that it is, because it just seems so ubiquitous and it's all over the place. And yet it is not essential, and it can be it is very destructive.
Yeah.
And so that was the big change with you guys.
Yeah, big deal in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is really, really great. So I'm going to do a mute here on someone here that I'm, let me get a mute.
I wanted to jump in just for a second.
Sure. Good morning, David.
I just wanted to thank Bruce and Eileen. I said that I want to congratulate them first, but that what a testimony for being able to have an active lifestyle and be on the HealthPointe program. And so I have shared their story with a number of people about being on the cruise and continuing to be predominantly on the HealthPointe program and stay in the course. And what a great story they have. And I'm grateful to be able to share their story with others.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, Bruce and Eileen, thank you so much. By the way, your background looks beautiful there, and you guys look beautiful. You guys look great. I know you guys have a house full of company, which sounds fun. And but thanks for getting on here and sharing. We sure appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Well, continuing around the horn. Good morning, Carol. How are you, Carol?
I'm super duper. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I didn't exactly queue you up, so hopefully you're ready. And actually, let me just take a moment just to say that anybody that wants to speak, you know, we talk about, oh, you can hit the hand raise icon on here to kind of signify that you would like to, or just like David did, just chime in. This is just kind of round robin. This is very informal. I've got a couple of things to talk about. In fact, let me just say this, because I'll want some like audience feedback if you guys care to. I've got too many topics that I want to cover. All right. So I'm all across the board. I'll tell you three that I kind of have queued up. One would be on the hormone leptin, which if you're reading your daily messages in HealthPointe, there is a segment on there where it talks about leptin and its effect on weight loss and health and so forth. Going way over on another end of the spectrum, but very, very important. And sometimes, I don't know, I know me initially as a coach, I wasn't vocal enough about this topic, and that is constipation. And just, you know, what to do about that and the numbers on that, and just in general. I mean, aside from HealthPointe, that's a very, very important topic. And for some reason, it kind of finds its way into being kind of a third rail topic, and it shouldn't be. It's very important, whether you're doing HealthPointe or you're coaching HealthPointe, this is something to talk about. And quite frankly, people that aren't even on HealthPointe should have an understanding of that topic and how to work with it. And then the third topic is just more stuff on microplastics, guys, specifically in our water, and coming back around to that topic, maybe touching on things with the New England Journal of Medicine article that we talked about already, or actually I talked about in a separate, well, we talked about it on the Walk and Talk as well, but also on a separate, Carol, on the Tuesday night training, I covered it on there. So, so yeah, 3 very disparate topics, and probably not enough time to cover them all. So if anybody has any preferred, I'll just pick one or something and go with that. But that's where my mind is at right now. But with that, Carol, I'm going to turn it back over to you and listen to what you have to say.
Well, Golly, I'd love to have you. Can you hear me all right?
I sure can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'd love to have you touch on all 3 of them. The leptin, I personally would like you to refresh, because I hear a lot about that. And if any of you follow Dr. Gundry, he's talked about leptin quite a while ago, and I'm sure Eric's got a lot more. So I would be interested in that. The constipation thing, I think, is an important topic to cover for folks, especially on the protein days. And like Eric says, I think people sometimes are a little bit reticent in discussing that with their coach, but I think it's an important factor. And of course, the microplastics always. So if you can cover all 3 of them, that's great. But that would be my order. But I just real quickly, and I won't take a lot of time this morning, but last week, I'm going to stop here for just a second. Last week, my Fitbit went kaput. And me and my Fitbit were like best friends. And so I had to order another one. It took a little bit of time for it to come in. And anyway, it finally came in. But it's real interesting having, worked with tracking for so long, how what a hole that leaves in your life when you can't track. Now, I stayed on the same habit patterns, but when you're not tracking and you don't know exactly, your steps, and you can't gauge every day, it does, for me anyway, it left a hole in my system for a bit. But anyway, I'm back. Happy camper came in yesterday, and I got it all charged up. But so I guess that ties in with the power of walking, and we call this a walk and talk. And I hope that I know Bruce and Eileen always walk. I always walk, well, partly because our weather lets us do that, pretty much year round. But I think, and David is always really good about that in particular, and his weather does not allow for that. I mean, I've seen David walk in blizzards. And so I think that power of incorporating, my feeling is, if I'm going to get up and talk to people at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to make it count. And that's where my steps come in. But I was reading an article about one of my favorite authors, and I'm going to see if I can switch over here. You can still hear me all right?
Sure can. Yep.
Okay. And let's see, let me move you over here, Eric. And this talks about sedentarianism, or not walking, being sedentary. And it says exercise combined with a healthy diet can have a profound cognitive effect. Now, we think of that a lot of times as the exercise to wear off calories, or to, keep our weight down, and because it's part of HealthPointe. But sometimes, and also we say, because it's exercise, it's gentle exercise. But I don't sometimes think of, we don't talk about the benefit of it from a whole physiological, mental, whole encompassing importance. And from the cognitive standpoint, from the brain standpoint, power walking, or walking as quickly as you can, not a casual stroll walking your dog, although some dogs walk faster than their leaders, but just walking briskly is so important. And what she was saying in here is that it has a very, very major effect on your cognitive function. So, and what that tells you is It keeps your brain clearer, responding quicker. You're actually, when you're walking, you're not only walking your body, you're walking your brain. Oh, and I will tie this in too, Eric. You're walking your intestines. So
Mhm,
when people
mhm.
walk, they're walking their intestines. So if you're having trouble with that, sometimes, not always, but sometimes that can have an effect on it. But more, I think the brain, we don't think about it from the brain standpoint. And they were saying just how people that walked briskly, again, I'm not talking about a casual stroll, I'm talking about walking briskly, how important that is for youth of your brain. And when your brain is young, your body will be young because your brain pretty much controls your body. And so I thought that was particularly important. And let's see what else. She was saying that the World Health Organization recommends 150 minutes of moderate intensity walking, of exercise, such as walking, swimming, or gentle cycling each week. Approximately 1.4 billion people around the globe who are at risk of a variety of health problems due to lack of exercise, including anxiety. Well, who doesn't have anxiety today out in the public? Obesity, of course, we know that, cardiovascular disease, stroke, increased blood pressure, muscle atrophy, increased blood sugar levels, cognitive decline, and loss of bone mass. So it not only helps you build your bone, because we want to continually be remodeling our bone. Our bone is not meant to keep at a steady bone level and let it die or get hard. It's meant to get rid of the old and bring in the new. That's remodeling. And your walking will really, really do that. And they found that study of world exercise levels of 2018 found that more than a quarter of the world's adults, or about 1.4 billion people, are insufficiently active. And I think that our computers, the virtual aspect of our business, where we're not walking from parking lots, we're not walking around office complexes. We have a tendency to walk from the kitchen to the office if we're working remotely. Virtually, we can do so much sitting in a chair. Our cellular phones have added to that, our tablets, all of these types of things have gradually changed our lifestyle, and we don't even realize it. And excuse me, there's some kind of an ambulance or something that's going to come by here. Hopefully it's,
Yeah,
excuse me.
actually, your microphone's doing a great job of muting it out. We don't even hear
Is
it
that,
right now. Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I can't handle it. There's two, we probably need to stop and say a little prayer for where these two are going. I don't know where they're going, but anyway, let's pray that it's nothing serious. But anyway, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say, because here's another one coming. So, and I'm in my neighborhood, so it's probably one of my dear neighbors. So we just want to make sure that it's okay. Yeah. So, okay. So anyway, I'm sorry about that. So
No problem.
that's the risk of being sedentary. And so I would say, now that our weather's getting nicer, whatever you can do to get out and walk while you're talking. And I know Bruce and Eileen have always been great on that. And I think one of the reasons the programs work so well for them is that they became kind of a stepping couple. Now we have a stepping queen, but we now have a stepping couple also. And honestly, they've been between 10, 11,000 and 14,000, 15,000, sometimes more steps every day. They just walk very, very early in the morning. And this keeps your brain locked in and charged into the whole eating program, so that when your brain is active and involved and happy, it keeps your brain happy, because an exercise brain is a happy brain. It keeps it happy. It keeps the anxieties levels low, and it keeps you wanting to stay on that program. So that's kind of just what I wanted to hit on this morning, is don't think walking is just taking a stroll around the block, which I know those that are on the call do not feel that way. but our new clients or people out in the marketplace, walking is really important in so many different aspects of our life. And it just keeps us from being negative. And also, we have a lot of very heavy duty stuff coming at us in the marketplace. All stuff that's going on in the world, whatever. It just helps us to center ourselves. I think that's a good word. Center ourselves so that we can approach whatever's going on in the world in a healthier way. So that's my take this morning, Eric.
Hey, that's great, Carol. And actually, if you're okay with it, I've got some things that I made note of that I'd like to talk further with you on, kind of unpack a little bit further. So you mentioned earlier about the remodeling of the bone. I thought that might be good to talk a little bit more about, because I know you've educated me so much on that, particularly with one of our HealthPointe folks on that. So I think that might be a topic that, when it comes to bones, bone strength, kind of some misunderstandings, we'll just say, in past medical science in terms of how to address bones and bone health and having healthy bones. And then the other thing, more recently, what you talked about here is just kind of the mental aspects of walking and stuff like that. And I guess, and I don't know that I have a question on that, but I just maybe additive on that is, when you're talking about kind of keeping how good it is for the mind, walking is almost like a meditative type of a thing.
Yes.
And, when you're walking, whether you're just walking with your own thoughts, or many of us are walking, listening to something, listening to oftentimes a HealthPointe topic audio, and we're listening to these folks, and it's just that quiet. It's not quiet time, but it's quiet times in terms of we're alone with our thoughts, unless you're walking with a friend or something like that. But otherwise, it's a great meditative time to just meditate and get the exercise and so forth. And the other thing that I wanted to say about kind of the mindset part of that is, and it's funny you mentioned about when you had the incident with your Fitbit, or you needed to get that, or you're waiting on a part or a new Fitbit or something like that, how you felt like a fish out of water for a while. And that's so great. I know I've experienced that myself. But the walking and the tracking in HealthPointe, I think it has a factor of keeping you in the game, right? So it would be like if you're in college and you just, part of the program of college or schooling is showing up to class, right? Or, whether that's online or walking to class. So like if you start building a routine, maybe you're in college and you're walking to class every day, that puts you in the mindset of it's time to go to class, it's time to do college, it's time to learn. Different than what you're doing maybe later in the day or on the weekend or whatever. And what I find is that having that steady cadence of every day, just walking, getting that steps in and stuff like that, that keeps you in the HealthPointe game. It keeps you, and so in other words, what I'm saying is you could be doing everything else, or trying to do everything else right. You could be trying to get your macronutrients right, your meals. You could be trying to get your micronutrients right. You could be trying to get your water right. And what I find is that if you're not habitual about your walking, it's more difficult to stay habitual about the other things. It goes back to the book that we often quote, I guess, with James Clear, Atomic Habits, and he's talking about habit stacking. I think that's a big part of that. I guess that's how I would think about that more clearly. It's kind of a habit stacking. When you're stacking this habit on something that's very controllable, and really walking is really a choice. This isn't something you have to build a skill set to. It's not something that you have to, learn about or anything else like that. It's literally a choice to do. And there's something that switches on when you say, ideally on a habitual basis, that at this time of the day, I'm going to get X amount of steps in, whether that's, 20 minutes or 45 minutes to get, about 5,000, but you do that. that get you in the HealthPointe mindset, and all the other things, the eating, the water, the micronutrients seem to fall in line because you've got that walking part. So again, no real question there, Carol, but just to add on so much to what you're talking about there with the walking. And then again, on the remodeling the bone, I know I'm not versed enough on this to speak intelligently about it, but you talk about remodeling the bone, and maybe you could share a little bit more about that, because I think a lot of conventional thinking out there is that bone is supposed to be like hard, and you're supposed to harden your bone to make yourself less vulnerable to breaks and stuff like that. And the reality is that has been debunked. The bone is a living tissue, so to speak. So maybe you could do a better job than I am on explaining that a little bit more.
Well, I'm not a technical person, but I think if you think of osteoclasts and osteoblasts, and osteoclasts are where you want to hold on to your bone, and osteoblast is where you want to let go of it and remodel it. And I always think of osteoblast as building. And unfortunately, your medical industry will keep talking about all these drugs. I'm going to try to stay in a quiet place here. Keep all of these drugs that will hold on to your bone. You don't want to hold on to your bone. You want to rebuild your bone. You want to hold on to your bone level, but you don't want to hold on to the old bone. And I think the easiest way for me always is I'm walking. Here we are, palm trees all over the place. So we got this kind of tree here, which is not a palm tree. And then we have that kind of tree, which is a palm tree. Now, if you take those two trees in a hurricane, the palm tree is going to sway back and forth because a palm tree is very supple. The other type of tree, which is a tree that I think it's the word indigenous to the area, so we have to keep so many of them. They're a hard tree, like an oak tree. Okay, a big oak tree is going to go down and break, where a palm tree will sway. Now, a palm tree might ultimately, the whole palm tree be uprooted and laid down, but the palm tree trunks will not break. The whole thing will be uprooted because of the strength of the hurricane or whatever it might be, tornado in many cases, but it will not break, where your oak tree will break. Your oak tree is very old, it's very brittle. And I think that's what the medical industry wants to do. And aside from a lot of other health issues that are very unhealthy in taking those drugs, holding on to an old dead bone and trying to keep it hard is just going to make it brittle. And then, how many times, good grief, just heard yesterday, somebody fell and they broke their collarbone. Now this person is 50 years old. Okay. Thank you, Jesus, but how many times I have, because of lack of focus, there's something going on in the sidewalk when I'm power walking and, I'm busy listening to something and I don't see it. So I'll go over. I don't go over because I'm unbalanced. I go over because I just didn't see there was an inch there that wasn't supposed to be there. I've fallen on my nose. I've fallen on my side. I've fallen on my back. I've fallen every which way. And I get up and I go on continuing my power walk. And the worst thing I think ever happened was I ended up with a bruise on my chin one time because I fell flat on my face. Nose and chin was the only thing that hit the ground first. Well, that has to tell you something about the power of walking since our kids were little. It was just something I always could take advantage of. I could work in my schedule. And I believe today, as a result of that, my bones have rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt because of nutrition and just that walking. So I think when HealthPointe made gentle exercise something that is part of the program, is so important and not to be overlooked. And no matter what you got to do, maybe you don't start out that way, but over a period of time, it's absolutely imperative that if you start at 2,000 steps, then work it up to 3,000 steps. If you've started at 3,000, work it up to 4, and whatever you have to do to get steps in all day long. And pretty soon you're going to find yourself feeling like withdrawal pain if you don't have those steps in. So it's again the rebuilding, and you do that through nutrition and through walking.
What a great metaphor there with the palm trees. And you would almost think that you and I had scripted this and planned this, Carol, because it was just so wonderful. You flipped your camera around, you're like, and look at this. And here's an example of these palm trees. And then here's this other indigenous tree. And it's totally,
and there's not that many of them. And I stopped right in front of one of them.
It totally makes sense. Yeah, because so you want your bones to be more like the palm tree, that when it gets a stressor, maybe a hurricane or a high winds or something like that, or in the case of ourselves, if our bones get a stressor, you know, we trip on a step, we trip on a sidewalk or something like that, instead of snapping, it's going to be strong and supple and so forth. And as you were describing that, and again, this is something that I need to learn more about. I want to learn more about. I was thinking also that this concept of bone, with maybe conventional thinking in the past being something you want to be hard and like the oak tree that you're talking about, or the hardwood tree, and that not being the case. I was thinking kind of almost like skin, which is another thing that we don't think of skin like, we know that we shed skin, right? We shed skin cells, we rebuild new skin constantly. We're constantly shedding skin. I think, what do we basically get a whole new skin is our largest organ. We get like a whole new skin organ in 30 days, I believe it's, if my memory serves me right. So we're pretty adapt to this thinking that with skin, it's not something where you don't rebuild it, it's constantly rebuilding it, and you want to be getting great nutrition. So as those new skin cells are developed and built, and you're shedding the old, you're bringing in new, you want healthy nutrition for healthy skin. Same thing with bone. You're rebuilding, what do you say, osteoclasts and osteoblasts. So osteoblast is kind of the building. Now, I know at the time that you kind of introduced me to this concept, you didn't know you were introducing it to me, but I was seeking some guidance from you on something, and you made a recommendation about particular nutrients. We do have in the Nutrilite line, we have a bone health pack, which might be something certain people should consider. It's certainly a very dense package of focused nutrients on that, but it also has a price point that people have to consider as well in that. But could you talk to what are some of the micronutrients, or just some of the nutrients in general, that we want to be making sure that we are building our healthy bone cells with as we're doing our walking and our bone health?
Yes, well, I would first of all say the calcium magnesium CalMag D is a great one. And if you go online and read the origin of that, it all comes from natural seaweed. I think it's out of Norway, if I'm not mistaken, or one of those countries. Very, very rich in nutrients. And again, it's like Frank Tennant, excuse me, this truck is coming by again. I think it likes me. Okay, go away. Oh, the lights aren't on, so that means it's okay. Everybody, whatever they did good. Anyway,
Good.
so the CalMag D is very important. Your D synergistically working with your calcium. One of the beautiful things about Nutrilite that we have realized from way, way back was the synergistic effect of different vitamins. And when people say, especially when they start out on HealthPointe, oh, I take vitamins, I take a C and I take a D and I take a zinc. Well, you're picking these things out of the air, but they don't work together. You got to, first of all, have a base. That's why we promote the double X so much. You got to have a base vitamin that's really, really, incorporates so many different nutrients so they all work together. And then from that, you can add on according to what your needs are. And when we think of a body, you're talking about the skin, I was talking about the bone. your whole body is a mechanism that's constantly rebuilding, whether it be, rebuilding in your livers and your kidneys and your esophagus and everything. Everything's rebuilding. We're a living, growing organism. And so if we're not feeding those things, then what happens is they just die, like you don't feed in something in a garden. So the Cal-Mag-D would be, I think, one of the initial go-tos. A vitamin D with K2 is another one that's extremely important, because what D3 in our vitamin, which comes from a mushroom, again, we're going back to a natural source, food source, and then it has the D3 and the K2. The K2 gets the calcium where it wants to lodge, and that's on your arteries, which ties in with the microplastics. Well, in there, you also got your excess calcium that's kind of stuck there, and you want to get that away from there. And your K2 is little truckers that take that calcium and it gets it into the bones where it needs to work. So we don't necessarily always have our vitamin go to the place it's supposed to go to do the thing it's supposed to do, in particular calcium. And that's why there's a lot of arthritis out there. People say, well, my doctor says don't take calcium, because all that is that's a buildup of calcium in your joints. Well, it's a buildup of calcium in your joints because you're not getting it to the places where it's supposed to go to activate what it's supposed to do. So the D3 with K2, in addition to the immunity, which is so important, and the heart health, which is so important, is also extremely important for getting the calcium to the bones to rebuild and get, flush out the old and rebuild and bring in the new. And then the last one, and this is kind of got to be my all-time favorite, because I fall into all the categories. I'm Caucasian, I'm small, I'm slender most of the time. I try. So a lot of those things lead to what the medical industry says is, what do I want to say, lead you to not having good bones. Well, that's fine if you don't feed it. But what the bone health does, and it is a little on the pricier side, but if you break that down into daily AM and PM, I think you're going to find it's not so pricey when you don't think a thing about going to a Starbucks and getting a latte or something else, or grabbing a candy bar, saying, wow, our neighborhood is noisy today. When you don't think about that, try to think, okay, instead of a Starbucks, why don't I, or a pack of cigarettes, which most of you, probably all of you, don't smoke, but an individual out in the marketplace, a package of cigarettes, they don't think anything of that. Well, and then they go to bone health, they think, oh, that's expensive. Well, cost versus value. And your bone health, it has 2 packets. It has your calcium and your vitamin D in the PM, and it's got your calcium and your bone health in the AM. And there's another term for it, but it's bone health, bone something, but it's a little dark capsule. There's 3 of them in there, and it's full of antioxidants that are just little soldiers that are saying, come on, calcium, let's go to work here. And just together, synergistically, they just go to those bones and they build them in such an unbelievable way. And I know the person that formulated this. She worked out in the Center of Optimal Health for years, 5 years. It took her to formulate this. And so I know what it went into putting this together and how important it is in the building of your bones. So I would say, especially if you are a little bit older, man, I'll tell you what, I would invest in it. I've invested in it for years when it first came out, and I've never, ever stopped taking it. And sometimes people will say, well, I took it for a while and it's sitting there. And I'm thinking, you got to refresh your memory on why you took it, because you would never let it just sit there. I don't let a day go by that I don't take that stuff, because it's super, super good for your bones. So I think those are the 3 things that I would hit on. And then I go again, go to your site and you can click on and read a lot of stuff. And sometimes they have sub articles in there. But if you don't want to get that technical, all you have to say is it synergistically works together to rebuild your bones, because they are dying off, and they're either sitting there dying off and stale in your body, or their body's getting rid of them and building new ones. And that's what you want.
That is so great. Yeah, hitting it on that topic of the synergistic effect. I know the other one of our previous HealthPointe walk and talks, I talked about the subject of phytonutrients, and that is something that I've learned so much more about. Of course, we know quite a bit about phytonutrients, just again, in the terms of the Nutrilite brand. And that's really what is so all encompassing with that, is it's not just isolating certain specific synthetic vitamins or something like that, but rather taking whole plant material, some of which in the phytonutrients and also the micronutrients themselves, these were not even categorized or discovered in science, and then science discovers it, and then they look into the Nutrilite formulation and go, oh, there it is, it's been there the whole time. So
well, that was vitamin E, because vitamin E was not discovered when we first started taking double X. Vitamin E, they didn't know vitamin E, and because that was back in 72. And when they discovered vitamin E, they found out that it was in double X all along. Now, how cool is that?
Yeah, and who knows what else is in there. And then the synergistic effect, the fact that you need, in the case of, you're talking about vitamin D, not just vitamin D in isolation, but vitamin D with K2, and how that's so important. And that's across the board, pretty much. Yeah, so many phytonutrients, so many vitamins, they are geared in the natural setting to work synergistically with other micronutrients, other phytonutrients, and so forth. And so it's so important to get the whole content, and to be working with a brand with researchers and scientists that have understood this for decades, and they're always learning more and gaining more insights into that. But super great stuff. So wow, that is an entire amazing segment there on such an important thing, with bone health. We talk about walking. You let off with walking and how that is a fact. And this is kind of turned into, maybe a bit of a bone health episode, but couldn't be a more important episode, because if you think about things that affect people's lifestyle, and it could certainly be folks that are, older, or we'll just say in the past, like 40, 50 or something like that. You talked about somebody that earlier that was only 50 years old or in their 50s, but also younger people as well. I mean, this is across the board. When you have a bone injury unnecessarily, you have a bone injury, then it really disrupts your life. And boy, if you are older and you have a bone injury, I'm sorry to say, that is statistically, I know I heard Peter Attia, some of you might know that name, Peter Attia, talk about somebody that will go deep on science. This guy, I don't know how many credentials and PhDs he has, and he's a practicing physician and researcher. Very, he just wrote, an iconic book that a lot of people are reading. But anyhow, he goes through like what are kind of like the 4 horsemen out there. What is it that actually takes people out? What is it that sets people on this unfortunate trajectory down? And one of them is just that, breaking bones. If you're older and you break a bone, and then the recovery is difficult and so forth. So anyhow, so whether it's keeping healthy bones. Go ahead.
I just want to say that how many times have people heard, okay, my mother, my father, whatever, broke their bone. They fell, they broke their bone. And so they went to the hospital. Well, the broken bone didn't take them. Pneumonia took them, because they're laying in this hospital bed and they're trying to recuperate. And pneumonia ends up taking them. I mean, I've heard that story over and over. So sometimes it's a precursor to other things, or it's an invitation for other things. And so, yeah. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
it just reminds me.
that's so true. That's exactly what Peter Attia is talking about is, you go into, somebody breaks a bone, and rather than just getting it healed up and out and back to their life, they go in there and then they catch something else, and then they don't recover, and they're back many times to the hospital. And then, and in his book, he's talking specifically about, the arc of health and versus the arc of decline and death. And, he just labels it out as a researcher, as a physician. What is it that actually kills people? And the big thing, it initiates with broken bones as one of the leading factors that he talks about. So this is a very, very important category. And yeah, we can definitely go deep and get nuanced, or just stay at the surface level. And for those that want to just stay at the surface level, pretty much if you're doing HealthPointe, you're on the right track, because you're getting your walking in, you're getting your macronutrients in that are going to support healthy bones, you're getting your micronutrients in that are going to be supporting healthy bones, and all these elements come together to keep you right on track. So if you don't want to get a PhD in bone health, don't worry about it. Just do your 6-week cycle. You'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine. So, well, that is great. Kind of moving around the horn. Is there anybody else that would like to unmute and share? Anybody would like to unmute and share?
Sure, I'll jump in.
All right. Good morning, David.
Good morning. And so, there's a audio that just recently came out for people on the Pro Pack or something like that. I don't understand all that, but anyways, and the title of it is puzzles something wellness, or like something like that. And so I jumped on it because I personally often feel like life is like a puzzle, and I'm trying to get all the pieces into the puzzle. And sometimes I look at my life and I feel like there's a piece missing, and I just can't find if I could just get that one piece, then everything would go together so well. And so he's basically talking about 7 things that you need to be doing for wellness, and how each piece of the puzzle is important. And if you skip one, it's going to make it detrimental to optimal health. And I found it interesting because we talk about it so often here. But we talk about purified water now, and we talk about I have I have lung issues, so I have a sky in my bedroom for purified air. And he started off as number 1 point was to purify your mind, and the power of association, and the people to protect yourself, to try to, some people you have to be around, but to try to minimize it or whatever. Anyways, we often talk about the mental part of are you mentally ready to start the program? And you're catching me after a while walking. I'm a little bit out of breath here. Bone health, I wanted to jump on that one just for a second, in that when Chris had her physical 2-3 months ago, that came up as osteoporosis was a possible issue for her. Her doctor wanted to put her on medication. I had checked the lab results before I went in, and so I brought a box of bone health with me. And so I think I already shared that I told the doctor I was going to try this path before I went the pharmaceutical path. And so she's just starting her 3rd box now, I think. And so probably in like 3 months or so, I'll be able to get back with you with the results on that.
Nice.
And so
Very smart choice, David.
Wow, so much was said. That's all my brain can hold on to for right now. So Oh, and the other one was about taking the steps. In the audio, one of the things he talks about is once you make the goal of whatever your goal is for steps, be it 2,000, be it 10,000, but once you set that goal, how that changes your whole mindset for the day. Because when you park your car, if you have no goal, you're looking for the parking spot closest to the door. If you're in HealthPointe, you park the furthest away in the parking lot. And if you're can go up an escalator, you go up the escalator. But if you're on HealthPointe, you're going to do the stairs. And so just by setting that.
Oh, did we lose David?
I think we lost David.
Yep. Yeah, he sometimes he has a bit of a garbly signal, but he comes back. But I'm looking on the dashboard here, and he is gone. So Elvis has left the room, folks. But what a great contribution. And I guess as David was talking about that audio, Carol, is that the audio that I think I commented to you? Same thing, I saw it come in, the new releases in the app, and I said, Carol, this is phenomenal. Can you talk with Casey about getting this into a shareable format?
It's the Jamie Allison. It was a Jamie Allison one. And I am going to text, I had company the last 3 days, so I lost a little sync in there. But if you throw me another reminder, I will make sure that we get that in the shareable. Yeah, I think it was a Jamie Allison. The wellness, I know the one he's talking about. I'm trying to recollect.
I think it's called the wellness puzzle. And I think you're right, Jamie Allison wellness puzzle.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it seemed like it was very, very much. And for those that we're kind of talking some inside baseball here as business owners. So for those that wonder what we're talking about, we as business owners have access to a massive library of audio content, and there's a fresh content that comes out every month. And then sometimes the organization Network 21 will, in addition to the 6 fresh audios, will also do like new releases. These could have been some recording that was done over in Australia or Indonesia or someplace like that. It's we're in the English speaking form of the app, and it comes through as content, but it's only for business owners. You got to understand there's certain content that is, part of it is, from a legal structure, right? This content has to be reviewed for legal compliance and so forth like that. And so there is segments that are there and available for business owners, but not available to non-business owners. And so when I heard this come through, I was listening. I was mesmerized by the topics because of all the topics that David is talking about and more. It was very, very well done. And as I was tuning my ear to this and listening, well, is there anything that needs to be kind of edited to make it for non-business owners, something that we could share to clients and folks on HealthPointe and so forth? I personally couldn't hear anything that would be out of touch with that or anything. And it was very valuable. It almost was like a HealthPointe presentation review is the way I kind of heard it, Carol.
It was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will definitely get on that right away when I get home. But Jamie Allison really, I think he has a veterinary background, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes, he did lead off with that part.
Yeah, and when I started listening to his first couple of audios, they were extremely good. We did get the PowerPoint to the one or the pictures that he was referring to. Casey sent that out. So if you're going to listen to the video, you're going to want to watch the pictures too. I mean, they'll be just helpful. The video is great. But what's interesting is then when I heard the wellness puzzle, or the exact name of it, he's really brilliant. And I thought he was great in the first couple of audios. But I think that third one made me realize just how extremely studied he is. He's just very, very smart man. And so, yeah, we'll get on that. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly how I felt about it. Is he is very smart. He obviously has a really firm grasp on the information,
Mhm.
and then his delivery of it is just his cadence, his clarity. It just made you want to listen. You know, where other people that are very smart, that you recognize that they're very smart, but you don't necessarily enjoy listening to him. Jamie is very smart and enjoyable to listen to. At least it was to me, and it sounds like it was to you and to David as well. So
We
yeah,
definitely, yeah.
well,
Thanks for bringing that up.
yeah. Well, we've just got a little bit of time here left. Anybody else looking to unmute and jump on here? Anybody? You know, and if anybody does, just jump in and interrupt me. Let me do this. I feel almost obligated now to cover some topics I talked about earlier. Maybe I shouldn't do that to myself. I can just end.
Or don't call
um,
on me where I eat up your time.
oh no, hey, you know, that's what this is all about. That was such a great segment there on the bone health. Let me do this. Okay, so a quick review on the microplastics. I actually have something queued up on this, and somebody else can do the work for me because Carol, as you had mentioned when you had introduced my topic when I was helping on the Tuesday night, that I had learned about this microplastics issue shortly after it had been released in the New England Journal of Medicine. And I think this will work. It was an audio that I was listening to, a podcast I was listening to. And this is the guy that I heard it from. His name is David Friedberg. And what I'll do, I think here, is I'll just play this clip. It should come over on the Zoom here, but let me just try it here. Okay, let me stop it there. Does everybody hear that? Can you hear that okay?
No, I can't. It's pretty garbled.
Is it? Okay. Then we
That's
will.
me.
All right. Then maybe that doesn't work too well to do it that way. So I'll skip on that on the microplastics. Let me jump over on the issue, the topic of constipation and stuff like that. Okay, because that one is kind of easy to address because it really comes down to this. First of all, in terms of how much fiber, it's a factor of fiber. And you can Google this. It's going to be different for men versus women. It's going to be different, you know, whether you're, 6'7" or 5'2", but you can just kind of Google this. But generally speaking, women are probably going to fall in the range of between 20 and 30 grams per day is what they're going to want to be intaking in order to get just good regularity. And men are going to be more than that, typically upwards of 40, maybe close to 50 grams. And so that's the first point I would make, is just know the numbers. And that was something that I didn't know. I think most people going to go through their lives and they're just very reactionary to it. It's like, hey, boy, I was constipated, or hey, this day I was not constipated, but they really don't understand what the numbers are. So if you can start with those base understanding of numbers, and then of course you're going to know your own body and you're going to be able to adjust if you're going to know if you got too much fiber, right? And you're also going to know if you didn't get enough. And you're going to just kind of dial that in and get into a steady cadence where it's going to be really great. In fact, I was just chatting with somebody yesterday. Well, I was just reviewing his message yesterday. I think he had left it on Wednesday, that this was something that he had never known and had experienced this, problem pretty much all his life. And he was so grateful for the HealthPointe program for learning just that segment. I mean, he was so grateful that he got a little bit of education on it. He was able to dial it in, and life is much better now for him as a result of that. So that'd be the first thing, is just understanding that it is basically a numbers thing, and just know your numbers, man, woman, and get that. And then secondly, because once you know the numbers, then it's like, okay, well, how do I get those numbers? And on that, I would just say, work to use the strategy of getting the fiber in via liquids, and I'll explain what I mean here, in addition to the solid. So in other words, somebody might say, okay, sounds great. I need whatever, 30 grams, but geez, how can I eat that many Brussels sprouts, or how can I eat that much, apple or whatever, these sources of fiber that are solids. And that is problematic because, and it's also not something that you can just kind of like quickly hit if that's what you're trying to get. It's like, I know I need some more fiber today, but it's 7 o'clock at night. Oh, let me sit down to, put my face down in a bowl of cabbage. No, that's not going to work. It's not going to work, on a consistent basis. But so that's where you want to turn to getting fiber, or having a supportive strategy of getting your fiber via liquids. Now, what do I mean? Primarily, of course, in Nutrilite, we have our fiber powder. That would, of course, be a wonderful source of your fiber. An additional source of fiber that works really well is chia seeds. Why chia seeds? Because chia is virtually a zero net carb, so it fits very well with the HealthPointe program. So in other words, for every gram of carbohydrate in a chia seed, you have virtually an equal amount of fiber. So if you know anything about calculating net carbs, you take your macro carbs, and subtract fiber, because of course it's not staying in your system. It's not going to move into your bloodstream. So for the sake of conversation, let's just say that chia seeds are a net zero carb. Here's the other thing about them. They work great in liquids. So for me, I love our Nutrilite protein powder, and I love getting that 21 grams of protein. So I'm going to put in protein powder most times a serving, which is 3 tablespoons of chia seeds in there. So I'll put maybe some cooled down coffee in a cup or container, put those three tablespoons of chia seeds in there, let them sit for just a few minutes and let them absorb the water, and they kind of become plump. They're still crunchy, but they're kind of plump. I know it doesn't sound that good, but try it if you haven't. It's really, really kind of a satisfying kind of a crunch when you drink this. And then I add usually the almond milk, a bit of salt, and then our protein powder servings, 2 scoops of protein powder, stir it all up. So there I'm getting a bunch of fiber in there in my protein. Now, another way I'll routinely use chia is with our muscle multiplier. I love our amino acid product, and because I just want to make sure I have good, healthy, lean muscle, and I do, various, along with walking, I do what's called animal flow, which is a form of workout. So I want to make sure I'm fueling my muscle. So I take the muscle multiplier. Well, you can take that muscle multiplier and just add it to a glass of water. Wonderful. But what I do is I'll take that glass of water. I'll take maybe another serving. Again, it depends on what else I've eaten during the day. Okay, certainly if this is a protein day, if this is for me a Monday and it's a protein day, because in lifetime maintenance, I still do a Monday protein day, I will definitely do that serving in the morning and the serving usually in the evening, where I'll add the 3 tablespoons of chia seeds to the water. And again, let it sit for a bit, put in the scoop of amino acid. And then sometimes I actually put it like a half a squeeze of the raspberry glucosamine, just to add some color and flavor, and stir that up. And when I gulp that down, again, I've got this great healthy serving of chia seeds. So again, just a review on the topic of constipation, know your numbers. And then secondly, know that you can ingest fiber on a sustainable basis, meaning you could do it every day this way, or every week, or every month, by getting it through liquids. There's lots of opportunities to get it through liquids. Okay. So I think that's pretty much all the time we've got for today. The subject of leptin, the hormone leptin, and maybe we'll cue that up for future episodes. Certainly, if you want to look into it yourself and you're on HealthPointe, go to day 22, I believe it is, in your HealthPointe program, in your daily messages, that is day 22. And that is where the daily message talks about leptin. Actually, that particular daily message is talking about sleep, which if and when I talk about leptin, I'll explain a little bit more thoroughly how sleep, either good sleep or poor sleep, either has a positive effect on that hormone or a negative effect on that hormone, and why that is important when it comes to weight loss. And so the hormone leptin is really kind of a fun thing to talk about it. But if you're on the HealthPointe program, you can just go to day 22 of your daily messages, and you'll get a good understanding of it there as well. So with that, I don't think we're pretty much wrapped up on time, unless anybody else has anything real quick. Going once, going twice. Okay, I think that is a wrap. We're going to put a wrap on this. I'll get this up onto our YouTube channel, Voices of HealthPointe, and then we'll look forward to doing this. Same fun stuff. It's always so fun. Wow, did we get so much information on bone health on this episode? I love it. This is so great. And but we will plan on next Saturday, same time, same place, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. And until next time, everybody have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, Eric.
You bet.